Welcome back. It is March 13th, 2022, and we got a good one for you, fellas. We're going to zoom right through this intro stuff because we're going to talk professional baseball. It was a heck of a week in college baseball. Let's go around the horn here before we start talking schedules and the what the week that was this past week. Let's just go around the horn here real quick, fellas, and tell me about your week. Steve, let's start with you going top to bottom on my screen here. Tell us who you talked to this week and what you got working on for next week.
Oh, I got a couple of high school previews, talking to some high school coaches. I got one, Jason Pierce from Bluffton. I talked to him, and I also finally got a hold of Philip Reynolds at Duggar Union. I really enjoyed talking with him, so I'll have a story.
I tell you what,
those two things pretty soon.
That's a small school, but they had a kid last year. I believe that was a senior, and he missed a lot of the season because of an injury. But a very small school. But man, I saw one game of theirs last year, and it was a kid that is not on PBR or anything like that, but it was like he was shooting BBs out of a cannon. I mean, this guy was.
Well, the reason that they're not on the radar so much is that they're still on probation to get back into the IHSAA, so they're not playing. They don't play in the state tournament series yet.
Now, wait, I might have my Duggars mixed up. Duggar Union's the one on the west side of the state, as opposed to.
That's the one in Sullivan County. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. There's some Union. There's Union County and Union City, but this is Duggar Union. This is the reformation of Duggar into charter school, right. And then they call it Duggar Union.
Right.
That's what it is.
You're working on that article. Who else did you talk to this week?
Let me see. Who did I talk to?
I was looking. I think you put a couple articles out this week. I was looking here real quick.
Yeah, I certainly did. Live blog or can't talk, live podcast, huh?
Yeah, right. This is live TV, folks.
This is riveting.
Well,
I talked to Cody Reister at Henryville.
Okay.
One of the cool things about Henryville is that two of their players and all athletes are involved in a podcast, and it's about mental health.
Yes.
And I listened to one of their most recent episode that I listened to was on March 2nd, and that was the 10th anniversary of the Henryville tornado. It was an EF4 tornado. It leveled the school, and they were talking about their firsthand experience with that. I mean, these kids were 8 years old. The coach was in high school when this happened. And then I also talked to Sean Winkelseth, who's the coach at Decatur Central in Indianapolis. He's talking about the name on the front. That's what they believe in. And one of my high school buddies told me about the Gil Hodges Bridge in Columbus that they're looking at maybe naming a bridge.
Really?
69 for him. He's already got a bridge in southern Indiana. He's got one in New York. He's got streets. He's got two fields named for him. He's got a lot of stuff. And as we know, Gil is finally going into Cooperstown this year. So that's pretty cool. So I kind of rounded that kind of stuff up.
I tell you, while you're at it, I'm going to show real quick. You're talking about broadcasting or the podcast. I wanted to throw this up. People on the show can see it. This week, the Goshen Athletics posted this. It's Goshen Athletics would like to send a special shout out to Dante Stanton and Seth Smith Kaufman for their recent sports-related IBS awards, and to 9/11 The Globe for being named the best college radio station in the nation for schools of 10,000 or less. So I thought that was really neat. That was a radio
won
station.
That several times. They won that kind of award several times. Jason Samuel runs that program, and they do a heck of a job there.
Yeah, I figured you'd know something about that up there in
Goshen. I know. That's right up in my neighborhood.
Yep.
I know Dante Stanton too. So yeah, they do good work.
Chris, let's go down to Papa Beach here in Wabash. It's good to have you back, buddy. How you healing? Tell us how things are going. And I tell you, I'm looking forward to your final out, folks. Your debut for the BAI final out. Tell us what you got going on, brother.
Oh, it's just still rehabbing my knee, trying to get well. Spent a lot of the week icing, watching a lot of college baseball on TV. Upped my subscription so I could pick up the SEC network, the ACC network, the Pac-10 or Pac-12 network, and just as you can't really see, but I'm sitting outside on my back deck because it's baseball weather finally, and I think hopefully it's here to stay. So looking forward to practice for high school starts tomorrow. I think I'm going to drive south of here to Oak Hill and go check out their brand new facility and see how that looks for myself, which is amazing. It's for those that don't know, Oak Hill put in a completely brand new everything in a new location, turf, the whole 9 yards, in-ground dugouts, and I'm excited to go out and meet with Shane Edwards and go check that thing out for myself.
I'm looking that up here real quick because I've been following that between them and Center Grove, both putting in new turfs this year. I've been following their status. I'm going to look that up and I'll have it for you after we talk to Jeff here. Jeff, I know you're going to talk to us in a little bit or next week about, you've been busy doing some stuff on Max Preps. Tell us what you're working on there.
Well, basically, I'm just I'll be contacting either the coach or the athletic director of all the schools, and just a project I've been working on for a long time to get the win-loss record and the name of the coach for seasons back to when the IHSA recognized the baseball tournament, which was the 66, 67. So the spring of 67 forward, trying to get win-loss record and coach's name of all the schools forward. And I've been, like Chris, I've been watching a lot of college baseball, of course, the Hoosiers. I've got my subscriptions paid up too on some of the college things and some of the channels, so I can get into it. Real excited about the major leagues getting started. And just like Chris said, Clayton Richard will be making his debut tomorrow to start coaching the Lafayette Jeff Broncos baseball team. So it's a good time of year, Dan.
Yes, it is. So is that just because I want to go back to that Max Preps things real quick, because I know you've been working on basically retrofitting Max Preps with scores throughout history, which that is a gargantuan task, by the way. That is, I've got sympathy for your back and eyes as you just sort through all the records and everything. But next week, and by the way, real quick, next week is our high school season preview show. All of us, we're so pumped about that for sure. You know, that's our sweet spot right there. That's where we hit our groove. You know, that's what we've been planning for, really. But Jeff, back to that Max Preps thing. Are you going to? Because we have talked kind of offline about how some coaches, it's getting more and more every year are putting their scores into Max Preps, but not all of them do still. And I think one of the reasons might just be, understanding of how to do it. So is that one of the things you're going to cover next week, or tell us a little bit more on that process, if you would?
Yeah, I'm going to have step by step about how to register, how to put your schedule in, and get your roster in and basically get going on max preps. We're going to be, well, I said we, but all of us representing baseball across Indiana will be given a certificate of a player of the week. And in order to qualify for that, you've got to have your stats and max preps. So hopefully that'll be some incentive, but just hope everybody thinks about it. It's, promote your program. If somebody wants to really get a hold of somebody's stats, they can, but promote your program, promote your players and your teams. And, we look forward to people entering their stuff so we can recognize their scores and accomplishments of their players. So
Absolutely.
that'll be next week.
And it's it promotes baseball in our state, generally too, as well. So I mean, it's a win for everybody when you put those scores into max preps. I found it that what you were talking about, there it is right there. That's some of the picture of the new. It's still unfinished. I was trying to look there. I think the outfield is not all the way done. I can't really tell. But man, that looks sharp there at Oak Hill, just right down the road from Chris there at Wabash.
Oh no, it's done. They practiced.
Is it done now?
They had a conditioning on it Friday, I think, or Saturday or Friday, Thursday. They were outside on the field for the first time. I think Thursday.
Okay.
So it's, the field itself is done, and things like bleachers and some other small things I think are all they're lacking at this point.
Good deal. Very good deal. Tell you what, my week, had another coach reach out to me. I want to show another picture here. Steve and Chris and Jeff can't see it, but if you're tuning in, you can. This is some of the tweets I tagged this week. Just remember, folks, tag us on your posts on anything that you feel you should have on the show. And, baseball hadn't started yet, but Southport, put it up there, their new jerseys. And I'm always, liking the pictures of the new jerseys and the hats. And Southport posted their picture, and then their coach reached out to me and said, hey, I think we need to get you this new hat. And I said, I'm not going to turn it down, coach. I tell you what, I'll bring my wallet, a microphone, and a camera. And I'll trade a post-game interview for what I bring, and we'll get a new Southport lid in the equation. Just going through the list here. Here's another good video. Purdue's baseball. It was actually the segment by Perfect Game podcast, which is another great podcast that you need to follow. They did a coverage of Coach Goff this year. I suggest you guys look that up. We're going to talk about this later too, of course. This is Indiana Tech had a huge win, and they were actually talking about it on the NAIA ball podcast this week because I'm not going to spoil it. We'll talk about that here in a minute. We talked about the Goshen. Here's another one you want to keep on your radar. Fort Wayne Tin Caps at Parkview Field. The Parkview Sports Medicine Baseball Classic is coming up this year. A great schedule. I guarantee I'll be at those games. College games, high school games. Scrolling through our tags this week, of course, we're going to talk about this some more as well. Notre Dame has the country's #1 team ERA. So that's a big deal right there. Taylor got some votes in the first NAIA Top 25 poll, the regular season. We're going to talk about that in a minute here as well. Some highlights right there. And just going through Indiana Wesleyan. Evan Salmon. I'm probably pronouncing that name wrong, Evan. Collects the first Crossroads NAIA Player of the Week honors. Indiana Wesleyan right there. These are just some things that I tagged along the way. So let's keep going. I had something playing there. Let's go back to the show. Let's move forward and let's talk about the week that was in college baseball. First, let's look at some of the D1 stuff. I made some highlights here. Let's run through these real quick because the main focus of today's show, if you tuned in, you know that our main focus of today's show is the professional baseball preview that we're going to do. So let's run through these college stats real quick. And I hate to run through them because, man, there were some good ones. Starting out in Division I, first of all, Ball State, Notre Dame, and Purdue, all three had a perfect week. Purdue 3-0, 15-0. They keep rolling. We're going to talk here in a second because they've got some big games coming up. Ball State's starting to get it together. They're back up to 500 now after a 2-0 week, and Notre Dame just keeps on going strong. Their only loss so far is to Delaware, and that's why I love baseball. They're beating these good teams and they lose to Delaware. Let's talk stats here for a second because there's some good stats. These are stats that I found people that are in the national radar. First of all, Matthew Ellis, IU, has got 7 home runs, tied for 4th in Division I. Right behind him, Tanner Craig from Evansville's got 6, and Trenton Quartermain from Ball State, love that name, Trenton Quartermain from Ball State's got 5. They're all, still early in the season, but they're all on the national radar for home runs. Some more stats from team-wise. ISU's got a .314 team batting average. That put them, I think, in the top 5. I'd have to look if, there's a lot of tiebreakers right there. If you go to d1baseball.com and look at the stats, it may say they're ranked 14th, but there's only 3 teams, or there's only 3 percentage point higher in the team batting average. So as by batting average, they're in the top 5. Notre Dame's right there at 311. But here's the big one we talked about earlier. That is Notre Dame with their 1.41 team ERA is leading the country for team ERA. That is stellar. Purdue's
incredible.
Yeah, it is. And Purdue's not too far behind them at 2.71 team ERA. With 19 home runs, IU's, on the radar for team home runs. But here's a big one, a couple weeks ago or 2 or 3 weeks ago, Purdue was leading the country in stolen bases. They're still in 3rd for stolen bases at 44. But the number 1 team, and I'd have to look this back up. I don't have it right here in front of me. But the number 1 team in the country has like 80, almost like double the stolen bases. So it's crazy. Somebody that's all they're doing. But Purdue's still, right up there. Ranking wise, we got to throw this out here real quick. Here's your national top 10. This is the d1baseball.com national top 10. A lot of them you can look at. I think Notre Dame might be higher in some and lower in others. The reason I like the d1baseball.com ranking is they're not quick to make changes. They like to look at the body of work over a few weeks before they make drastic changes. Texas lost this week. Ole Miss and Arkansas each have losses. But they're not moving anything. Now, the new one will come out tomorrow, but as of current standings, Notre Dame's ranked 9th in the country. So, pretty good lookout for Notre Dame. They keep rolling along. And the one thing I want to talk about is games next week before we move on. And I want to give you guys a chance to talk about D1 too. It was just a pretty eventful week. But Notre Dame and Valpo both play each other this year in Indiana, folks. You got to get there. Notre Dame and Valpo, that team I'm talking about, the number 9 team in the country. And Valpo, they're playing each other twice this week. ISU playing Southeast Missouri State and Kansas. Now Southeast Missouri State's got some quality wins this year, and Kansas has got a couple. But, and I could have highlighted a lot more of these, but these games like this, when anybody in Indiana is playing an Ohio team, an Illinois team, a Kentucky team, a Tennessee team, a Kansas team, any Midwest team, that affects recruiting for the future. So games like this are always on my radar. I think Butler's playing Wright State this week, and games like that I like to see because that helps recruiting. Butler, Illinois, Butler, Eastern Michigan, another example. The big games I've got highlighted are right here. First of all, there's only 3 undefeated teams left in the country: Purdue, I think Virginia, and Maryland, if I'm right. Clemson. Okay. Yes. One of them, it's either Maryland or Virginia is not undefeated. Maryland's not undefeated. Virginia is though. So Virginia, Clemson. Now I haven't verified that with today's games, but Virginia, Clemson, and Purdue are the only 3 undefeated teams left in D1. Kind of the verdict, so to speak, on Purdue is they quote unquote haven't played anybody yet. There's probably some truth to that. I'm not going to deny it. but that doesn't take anything away from what they've done. They've won 15 games in a row. I don't care if you're playing Jeff's old high school team, where it was a one-man show back then with that 800 batting average. Jeff, we're gonna bring that up all year. I just want to let you know. But 15-0 is 15-0, and they're not playing. They're playing Division I teams, so I don't care what it is. But this week they're playing Illinois State, and Illinois State had a win early in the season versus Arkansas. So I mean they're legit. And then Notre Dame versus Louisville is what it is. I mean that is huge. That might be the D1 baseball or college baseball games of the week right there. Two big ones for sure. So before we leave D1, guys, I know I did a lot of talking there. D1's kind of the segment I focused on. Anybody got any other input? Steve, go ahead.
Yeah. Evansville went to New Orleans and swept number 18 Tulane.
Nice.
3 games.
Very nice.
That's pretty good to do that even at UE, but they did it in New Orleans.
So they went 2-1. Now today, they've got a game today that I don't think I'm missing a verdict on, but they beat Tulane twice, he said.
Yeah, they beat Tulane. They swept a doubleheader from them yesterday, and they beat them today.
Nice.
They beat them 3 games. The Friday's game got moved to – they ended up with a doubleheader because the weather was crummy all around the country.
So I probably need to update that. They're 3-1. I'll tell you what, Evansville's got a strong schedule.
Right,
Holy
they're 6-10 on the season. They won 3 in a row.
Okay, so they are.
And they play Austin P, and then they go to Northwestern next weekend.
Yep.
So
I would argue, Notre Dame's played a strong schedule. IU's played a strong schedule. I would say Evansville's right up there, if not the top toughest schedule for D1 Indiana schools. If not the top, they're right there.
I got one other thing about Evan. Okay, go ahead.
Didn't Evansville play at Vanderbilt earlier this year?
Yes.
They did.
Yeah.
Played a midweek game at Vanderbilt.
They got humbled, but yeah, they started out strong.
I want to reach out. I want to reach out to Evansville and get the answer. Unless one of you guys know this, I see on social media they always put something about guac and put an avocado. What does that mean? What's that about?
I don't know. It's got to be an inside thing.
Yeah, I want to see. I'm going to ask somebody.
I may have to look that up while we're watching.
If anybody's watching and knows the answer, let us know.
Let's go to Division II, and I've got the current records now. USI and Purdue Northwest. I think we're still playing when I put the records together. But Purdue Northwest, a good week at 3-0. USI strong schedule 1-1. They're still 7-4 though. So UIndy I think got rained out and a cancellation. So I think they've got one going on today. And again, at the start of this broadcast, we didn't have a score for that yet. Does anybody have any updates or other additions to our D2 lookup?
Not yet. No.
We're gonna keep an eye on that, and maybe by the end of our broadcast, we'll have some updates on those scores here real quick for their records. Let's look at D3, and as we look at records, has some good weeks this week with Wabash going 4-1, Manchester 2-0, Franklin 4-1, Earlham 2-0. Anderson still got a game playing. They're going to end up either 1-3 or 2-2. I don't know, Steve, if you had an update on that or not. Rose-Hulman and DePaul both had some cancellations this week. But looking at those records, I mean, Earlham still holding strong at 7-1, Franklin at 8-3, Wabash at 7-2. D3 got a little bit later start, I think, didn't they, fellas? So, I mean, we're just now starting to see, get a visual of what that Division III series is going to look like.
Yeah, the D3 season tends to start later than the other levels. So, Anderson was down 6-0 against Farmingdale State on their down south. That's in the 6th inning. So a game's still in progress.
Let's look at the NAIA scene. It's a scene that we all love for sure. USF, University of St. Francis, man, Coach Butcher's got them heading in the right direction there. 2-0 again this week, 14-6 overall. IU Southeast, Coach Real. You know what he said at the beginning of the year? He said, "I'll go 0-50 as long as we're in sync by the end of the season." And they're getting there at 3-0 this week, 11-7. They're heading in the right direction for sure. IU Kokomo still 4-1. I didn't have them highlighted there. I probably should have.
They're 6-0 in the conference.
Yeah. I didn't put together conference standings yet. I'll probably start doing that next week because then we'll.
Yeah, the conference seasons haven't begun in some divisions and they have in others.
Exactly.
Just getting started.
And once again, I know we talk about this every week, but the number of games, if we look at that, NCAA Division III, where some of the season records are 3-0 and stuff like that. Then you look at Indiana Wesleyan at they've played 18 games.
When you consider they started later and they play 40 games at D3 and they play 55 games at NAI and 56 at B1. So it's kind of different, schedule.
Oakland City's already got 22 games. That is crazy. We love, folks. We are NAIA fans on this show. We've highlighted, we've made that abundantly clear. Let's talk JUCO and Steve.
What about? Wait a minute.
We've got something.
You better lead on NAIA.
Let me.
Indiana Tech knocked off the #1 team in the country this week.
Where is that?
That's a huge win.
Yeah, that's a huge. They beat #1 Southeastern. They're in Lakeland, Florida, on their field. That was Thursday. They won 11-8. Southeastern, the Fire, they won 26 games to begin the season.
Yeah, I think they were. I'm trying to load it right now to see.
Tech was up 8-3 after 4 innings, and then they on to win 11-8.
Yeah.
That game there were 7 home runs in that game. Tristan Osika, Ashton Moxie, and Jade Reed had them for Tech. Yeah.
If this would have happened any other week, we would have had Robbie Gutierrez on the show, the guy that runs the NAIA Ball podcast. Robbie, if you're listening, make sure you hit us up because we didn't have time to put you on this week as we get ready to move over into the pro preview scene, and we didn't have time to fill him in. But yeah, this was one segment. Yeah, this will be on his podcast. Make sure you check that out, the NAIA Ball podcast. It's a great podcast for sure. I totally overlooked the one of the top stories in baseball this week for sure. Southeastern was 25-0 before running into Indiana Tech. JUCO, I think I need to update these. And Steve, matter of fact, we're going to do this live on the air. Give me those JUCO scores again here real quick, and I'm going to add them in live. What did Ivy Tech do this week?
Vincennes University had a 1-0 week, and they're 6-9.
Look at this live. Look, how about this technology? It's almost like we spare no expense, kids. How'd Ancilla do?
Ancilla was 1-1, and they're 4-3 on the season.
And Ivy Tech?
Ivy Tech is 1-1, and they're 4-3. And the reason not many games is because all these games were played in the Great White North, and they got a lot of cancellations and postponements.
Well, and the Ivy Tech posted this week that they were looking for some games this week, actually. I don't know if they got that finalized or not.
And they will play anyone, anywhere, at any time.
Yeah, that's like exactly.
I think they were supposed to play today, and then it didn't happen. So,
yep. And I know that there were some issues transferring over. They were doing some new stuff to their website and stuff like that. But now everything's up to date, and you can follow their scores. And I'll tell you what, Steve helped me out with the name, the kid from Ivy Tech. That a pitcher. I talked to Flick this week, Mark Flukinger up there, their assistant baseball coach, and they've got a kid at Ivy Tech. I'm going to look up their roster here real quick. That's hitting 99. I'm going to look up his name real quick. Live TV, because if you haven't seen. I'm looking them up here. If you haven't seen Ivy Tech play, I mean, they've got a kid that he's going to be D1 soon. And I'm looking here. They don't have their roster totally up on there yet, so I don't have his name. But we're going to get that for you, and we're going to have him on the show here coming up in the next few weeks, because this is a name you got to know. And, Ivy Tech is kind of like where we're segueing into here, minor league baseball. The Ivy Tech, the Ancilla, the Vincennes, you got a chance to see people before they go big time sometimes, because they start out in the JUCO, they go what's called the JUCO route. And there's some players on these three teams. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
His last name is Peters.
Yes.
It's Matt Peters.
Matt Peters, yes.
That's it.
We shoot the cuff long enough, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I found it in our text messages.
Yes, thank you. That is in-depth reporting right there by Baseball Across Indiana. The Matt Peters, that's a name you need to have on your radar, because the guy's throwing bullets, man, from the mound, and we're gonna see more of him for sure. Guys, let's keep things moving here, because we need to migrate into the reason for today's show, and that is we are going to preview the minor league baseball scene, as well as some of the native Hoosiers in the bigs. I tell you, the first thing when you think about the three minor league baseball teams in Indiana, of course, there's more than just minor leagues or professional baseball. You have affiliate professional baseball teams now, with the Gary South Shore Railcats, as well as the Evansville Otters are affiliated Major League Baseball teams. But then you also have independent pro baseball teams as well. So, there's a lot to talk to, but I'll tell you, as you look at the three minor league teams, the first thing I think of when I think of these minor league teams are the stadiums. When you look in South Bend at Four Winds Field, that stadium revitalized the community, and it was an intentional part of the building of that stadium back in 2000. I believe it was 14. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there. Four Wind Fields at South Bend. Then you got Parkview.
That's when they updated it. It's been there since the 80s. But
okay.
They overhauled it.
Right. Yes, the overhaul they did. But Parkview Field hasn't been around since the 80s. That was a new one back in 2012, I believe. It was the first year that the Wizards became the Tin Caps, and LaTroy Hawkins came in, and that was where people got to see him for the first time, was at Parkview Field and the Fort Wayne Tin Caps. And this stadium, all three of these stadiums, year in and year out, win awards for their stadium environment across the country. And Victory Field, of course, we all know that one. That's where that view right there, you can't get any better than that field. Legitimately, we have three of the best minor league baseball parks in the country. And folks, that's not me saying that. That is well documented. So guys, before, we got a chance to talk to Joe Hart of the South Bend Cubs, as well as Mike Nutter, and Joe is the president of the South Bend Cubs, Mike Nutter, the president of the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, and Randy Lewandowski, the president and GM of the Indianapolis Indians. And I'll tell you, this was one where I really had a hard time breaking it down to 30 minutes. I know I say that every week, but it's 8:32 right now. I think this video goes about 30 minutes, and I had to cut it down because we talked about an hour and a half. So we're going to have the full interview online, but some great things. Steve and Jeff, you guys were there. Any takeaways that you want to maybe highlight for people to watch for before we hit play on this? I'll tell you, one of them that stands out to me is that, you guys know that I always ask that question when we're interviewing somebody in the pros. I asked that, the 12-year-old kid question, is when, this is, you guys do this for a living, but when is it when you go there and you just get to have that 12-year-old kid moment where you get to reflect on how cool it is to work for the South Bend Cubs, the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, Indianapolis Indians. And they went into that on this, and it was really neat, because there are moments where these people at the top of their game, presidents and general managers of professional baseball organizations, and they're talking about the moment where they feel like a 12-year-old kid, and I absolutely loved it. So, guys, let's take a listen to Joe Hart, the president of the South Bend Cubs, Mike Nutter, the president of the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, and Randy Lewandowski, the president and GM of the Indianapolis Indians. And let's hear what they have to say. And one more thing real quick I want to highlight is, and they do so much for the community. For these guys, it's not just about wins and losses at the minor league levels. It's about the environment. It's about the resource that the stadium is, the resource of the reach that they have as a marketing presence to support nonprofits and things like that. So I want to highlight, I can't highlight that enough. And the one thing they didn't go into too much, folks, if you're listening to this, this is a non-COVID year. So the stadiums are going to be full, and they're planning, they're having, they kind of mentioned in passing that they're having some times filling employment spots for things like concession stands, ticket sales, all kinds of things like that. So make sure you check their websites as well. Guys, I can keep talking about this because I love this interview, but let's give it a listen right now. I follow a lot of diehard minor league baseball fans, and they all confirm what I preach, and that is we have three of the best minor league organizations in the country right here in Indiana. We're talking about going north to south. We've got the South Bend Cubs. We've got the Fort Wayne Tin Caps and the Indianapolis Indians. Of course, not on this show with us right now, but we've got some affiliate teams here with us too, the Gary South Shore Railcats, the Evansville Otters. So, we are blessed with great baseball, professional baseball in Indiana. And we're blessed right here in this show to have the three guys heading up those three teams with us. And Mike Nutter, the president of the Fort Wayne Tin Caps, Joe Hart, the president of the South Bend Cubs, and Randy Lewandowski, the president and GM of the Indianapolis Indians. Guys, I'll tell you what, I've been a long time. I've been wanting to talk to you guys. I've been a fan for a long time. I really appreciate your time. And let's get right into it. Randy, I left off on your name. We'll just bring it right back to you. Give us a background of what got you to where you are today from the business or baseball standpoint. And I know some of these guys here with us today. Maybe you can talk about how you've crossed paths with them as well.
Well, I think we all enjoy a great camaraderie. I imagine our stories are probably somewhat similar. I was, I guess, fortunate enough or silly enough that I've been able to stay in one spot for my entire career. I say that about me, and I also say that about the organization, that they let me stick around for so long. But I started as an intern back in 1994 at Busch Stadium. So for those Indiana baseball fans that remember Busch Stadium on West 16th Street, I had 2.5 years there, and really the timing coincided with my career with the building of Victory Field. That's really, the Indians back then had 7 full-time staff members. I was an intern. There were 2 or 3 of us, and the timing just worked out perfect from when I got into the game as an intern to opportunities with the new ballpark in downtown Indianapolis, and have been fortunate enough to work my way up through the ticket department and stadium operations and overall operations. And I was fortunate to start leading our staff in 2006, and things have just grown from there to higher and better levels. But through the whole thing, we've been blessed with great support from our fans in Central Indiana, fans throughout the state as they visit Indianapolis and Victory Field. Our staff makes all that go around, and you're going to hear Joe and Mike talk about our staffs, because while we might be leaders, and I put that in air quotes, it's really our staff and our fans that make it go for us. But it's been a long journey, 29 years. Never would have thought I'd be able to be in this particular spot, but enjoy it every day, and certainly something that we look forward to every day.
Well, I'll tell you what, and there's one common thread that we can say about all 3 of these guys too. The view at your office is definitely better than mine. And I tell you, I know that Victory Field there just put on some luxury suites over the last year or so, and now we've got a full no restriction season ahead of us. So I'm sure you're going to be excited to open up the doors on those new luxury suites up there at the top. And, speaking of luxury suites, as we move to South Bend, I tell everybody this story too. The last time I was up in South Bend, I was talking to you, Joe, And I tell them this story all the time because we just got done interviewing, and I think you had a call. So while you were taking that call, I walked out on the deck outside of the luxury suite, and there was nobody else in the stadium, and I got locked out there. And I'm thinking, should I call him or should I just let this ride out? Because if I'm going to get locked anywhere, it's going to be right here with this view. So talking about good fields, another new stadium up there at Four Winds. Give us a little bit about your background and how you got to be running the show up there in South Bend.
Well, first and foremost, thanks for the kind words that you said about all three of our organizations. Compared to the three of us, I'm the newbie. I've only been here 10 years. Mike and Randy certainly set the tone well before I got here, but it's I love my time in South Bend. I went to West Virginia University, got my degree in sport management, and was lucky enough to do some internships. And unlike Randy, I've moved around quite a bit. And an ironic fact, and I'm sure Mike will touch on it as well, Mike and I used to work together for the Nashville Sounds many, many moons ago now. And I think, as either you mentioned or Randy mentioned earlier, it is a community. Everybody knows everybody. Randy and I also have another connection. As he mentioned earlier, his son pitches for Bethel, which is right here in town. And I spoke to his class. We've also had a lot of other communications about the baseball industry and getting involved with working for us during the summer. And, I know he can certainly go to his dad, and it's a wealth of knowledge, but, trust me, Randy, I'm trying to say the exact same thing that you do. So we know our kids don't listen to us, but maybe they'll listen to somebody else. So no, I mean, it's been a great thing. I've been in South Bend now 10 years and just blessed to be in the state of Indiana and do what we do. It is all about baseball. It's about providing the best experience possible for our fans. At the end of the day, that's why we do it. We all love when we win, but the three of us on the call also know that we don't have anything to do with wins or losses. So it's taking care of your community and doing a lot of good things.
Well, and I want to touch on that. I really want to dive deep into that, because that's one thing that all three of your organizations do so well, is just being a resource of many different types, many different hats, for a community resource for, not just South Bend, Indianapolis, and Fort Wayne, but the greater areas, because you guys' reach is so large that, and you're providing opportunities for charitable organizations and things like that to take advantage, or to piggyback, if you will, off that resource that you guys can provide. So let's go over to Fort Wayne. Speaking of another great field, I tell you, I could tell stories about these all day long. Your broadcaster John Nolan there, he's probably glad that I bug him so much to talk about this, but both of Joe and Randy were both talking about the staff, and I've met a lot of your staff, Mike, and just great people. And I'm sure you're just loving the environment you have up there, just with those great crew you have up there in Fort Wayne. So tell us a little bit about how you got there and about some of that crew.
Absolutely. My story is a lot more like Joe's than Randy's. And so I've moved to different teams all around the country. Randy undersold his playing ability. Of the three GMs or presidents sitting up here, he's probably the only one in a Hall of Fame for his playing ability. So he was a great player, and now his son's following in his footsteps. My dad moved us all over the country. One of those stops was the Chicago suburbs. So I started back with the Kane County Cougars back in the Stone Age in 1992, and have been doing this ever since. It stops all around the country. Like Joe said, we worked together in Nashville in the late 90s. I recognized that uniform over his shoulder from all those years working at the old Greer Stadium. I learned back then when they called it Stadium Historic, that's probably because it wasn't the best. And so, now they're in that beautiful ballpark down there in Nashville. But blessed like these guys to work in great baseball markets with friends like them that we can confide in. I reached out to Randy today about a partner that they work with that's trying to move into Fort Wayne. So there is a lot of, the teams compete on the field, but we really share ideas on a lot of stuff. And you mentioned our staff. Randy kicked it off by talking about our staff. We lead the thing. A lot of times I joke that I'm the head of the complaint department, but we are blessed to work with people that give an incredible amount of hours and don't always make the most money. And our industry's been through so much with COVID, but we're excited about 2022 without the restrictions and And hopefully it looks a lot more like Indians, Cubs, and Tin Caps baseball than what the last couple of years have looked like.
Well, you mentioned the COVID thing, and I want to touch on that for just a second as we segue into what we were just talking about, which is that all the things that you guys do for and with your community. But one thing is that is I can't emphasize enough is when COVID hit and there was no minor league baseball, there were jobs impacted, aside from the health and the lives and everything else, but there were careers and jobs impacted, and all three of your organizations stepped up big time, not just for the Tin Caps name, but because this is where you guys live. This is where, so I got a lot of hats to tip, and I'd tip every one of them for all the stuff you guys are doing. So with that theme, let's look at 2022 and what are some of the things that you're got planned as far as working with your communities. And Mike, I left off with you. Let's just keep it there and go back down around the horn. But tell us about some of the things that the organization is doing with the community going forward, and then maybe some of the things the organization is excited about in that regard.
Absolutely. So a couple things that come to mind right away. People know the fireworks and the cheap beer and all that kind of stuff, but some of the special cause stuff, our military appreciation night every year is one of the biggest things we do. We can usually get a flyover from the Air Guard base, which still gives me chills every time. We started Parkview Field back in April of 2009 with the jets flying over, and they were flying a lot faster back then. We have different jets now, but it's still the coolest thing to see that. We do some peanut-free nights for some allergy awareness stuff that are big here. And then two other things that I would highlight. We're having a throwback in May to the Fort Wayne Daisies. So everybody on this call, on this Zoom, especially you and your co-hosts, know about the history of the Women's League. And, of course, a lot of people know from the movie A League of Their Own, they're having a big anniversary this upcoming year. So we're going to attribute to the Daisies. There's still some players in the area, and we're going to have them out. And then one thing that we're doing new, totally different. We do wild and crazy, and we do all kinds of stuff. But this one is really to build each other up. On May 28th, we're going to do a mental health awareness event where we bring people out. So much has changed in our country where we don't have to pretend like we're all perfect and things like that. My family has been impacted greatly with mental health. Our daughter, we're very public and open about it. Our daughter recently got out of a treatment facility for some mental health disorders that developed during the pandemic. And there's so many young kids like that out there right now with everything going on in this world after COVID and all this stuff. And we just want people to know our ballparks in South Bend and Indianapolis and Fort Wayne are family-friendly places to come on out and sometimes deal with the tough stuff. So that'll be one of the things that we're looking forward to this year as well.
Folks, you're tuning in right now. This is why you can't beat minor league baseball. I'm telling you what, it is dollar for dollar, pound for pound, the best entertainment for the best reason. And you'll get me off on a soapbox and I'll keep us here another hour. But I tell you what, it's I'm loving everything you're selling there. Joe, let's bring it back to you. I know the revitalization that came with Four Winds Field and everything else you got going on there. Tell us about some things that are going on for 2022 and what the Cubs are excited about.
Well, I think the biggest thing is, Mike alluded to it earlier, is just to be normal, just to have normal. We haven't, when you really think about it, we have not been normal since 2019. That sounds like a decade ago. And I guess it really was, since it was in the 19. But the other thing too is, for us, it's all about helping the communities. It's giving back, because we are all nothing, not only without our employees, the great folks we have in our front offices, but it's really the community. It's the business community that needs to come out and support us. So, much like Mike, we do military appreciation. We wear special camo jerseys throughout a couple Sundays, during the year. And then we donate that to a local, veterans, community aspect here in town. We do the fireworks shows. We do a safe at home night where we really try to promote and advocate for safe homes. And, the ballpark is a great place to do it. It's family friendly, it's safe. So, those are the type of things that we're doing. Yes, we will all do our fireworks shows. We'll do our giveaway nights. But I think it is all the extra things that we do, whether it's raising funds for a local charity, honoring, either survivors or, other folks in the community have given of themselves. I mean, we have a great platform to be able to do that, and people listen. And I think that's the number one thing that I appreciate about minor league baseball. I think all of us on the call, none of us have ever worked at the big league level. And I think we're all still in the minor leagues because you can have a lot more impact on your community.
I'll tell you what, I haven't been normal way before 2019, and I don't have any intentions of anytime soon. But I love what I'm doing, and I'm loving what you guys are doing. And we're going to talk about that Fort Wayne Tin Caps opener here in a little bit because it involves a couple of us here on this call. Randy, let's pass things over to you, to the Indianapolis Indians, another organization. I just can't stress it enough. Just everything you do for your communities, not just the outreach, but also the way that you're opening doors to allow nonprofits and organizations come in and work the concession stand. And, that's one thing a lot of people don't think about for the COVID is, a lot of the nonprofits came in and they got to earn some income by working concessions and things like that. And that was gone. So, I mean, just that by itself, but you guys do so much more. So tell me a little bit about some of those community projects for 2022 and what the Indians are excited about.
Well, Hardy, I think each of us are glad that you're stumping to help fill those concession stands with workers. That's going to be a real challenge. It's happened in the NFL and the NBA here in town in Indianapolis. It's happening across the state. So yeah, we do open doors for those nonprofits. One that I would highlight that we've worked with a lot and have really supported over the last couple of years is Indy RBI. We wanted to get involved with urban youth baseball in Indianapolis. RBI had been around and we had supported it, but I would say, a little bit. We jumped behind it. We started Indianapolis Indians Charities in 2019. And again, we copy a lot of what Mike and Joe do in their communities, and imitation is the best form of flattery, whether it's promotions, community involvement, whatever else it might be. But where we wanted to differentiate is in RBI. We believe we're the largest minor league city that is behind an RBI program, and it's just really been important for us to get behind it and bring that to life. So that's been something we've been really proud of. But during the pandemic, I mean, when we weren't playing baseball, I think everybody here opened up their doors to community efforts. It's what kept us busy. It was the only thing we could do there for a while. And again, we're doing a lot of the same promotions. We really get behind the Marvel program with superheroes. Again, family friendly. That's where we differentiate ourselves in our market, and that's what Mike and Joe are doing in theirs as well. Is that family friendly? And then we've talked a lot about community. We consider Victory Field to be the state's largest community gathering place. That's the way we try to look at it. So we've got a 14,000 seat stadium, and we want to open up those doors to anybody and everybody that's willing to come out, whether it's for an Indians game, whether it's for the IHSAA state finals that we're so proud to host in the state capitol, or whether it's high school baseball. I know Mike and Joe do a way better job than we do with high school baseball games and youth baseball and everything else. But those are opportunities and memories that we can help create for youngsters playing the game, for their families that come to support them, and then all those other not-for-profits that we work with that we prop up and try to support in some way, shape, or form. Because again, I think Joe just said it. That's what makes it go, and we can make an impact in our communities, and that's what makes baseball so great, and minor league baseball in particular.
Well, you're right. And minor league baseball in particular, I will second that. And, you guys just, if you're watching this, I'll just kind of reiterate one more time. Now you see why it's so easy to be a fan of these organizations and these guys. It's at the minor league level, and they'll say the same thing. Well, matter of fact, Joe did say it. It's not about, the wins and losses as much. I'm not saying it never is, don't get me wrong, but it's about that, what you're doing for the community. From a business standpoint, you want to fill the seats, obviously, but you're not filling the seats with shallow things. I mean, you're doing with some legitimate giving back, for lack of a better way of saying it, to the community. And it just happens to be very entertaining at three of the best minor league baseball parks in the country, hands down. That's not Hardy the Hat Guy saying that. Just Google it. They've won awards year in and year out, and it's exciting to me. So let's keep on that exciting theme before as we get close to wrapping things up. We talked about some of the programs that you're excited about. One of the things I'm thinking right here, exciting for me, is that rivalry between the Tin Caps and the Cubs. Matter of fact, Fort Wayne's home opener is versus the South Bend Cubs, and it's a 6-game homestand. And I'll tell you what, that is on those 6-game homestands. I mean, you guys are there from, dusk to, 3 a.m. and those are some long days you guys are putting in. And so Mike, let's bring it to you. I talked about that home opener versus the Tin Caps. What are some of the other things that the fans and you personally are excited about for 2022?
We talked about it. Just getting through COVID is a great thing. But, you're always trying to change the food menu and the promotional layout and different things around the ballpark and the venue itself. We're expanding all of our Wi-Fi leading into the year. They tell me it'll be done by the 12th, by when we're facing Joe's group. You mentioned it with the change with Major League Baseball and the overseeing minor league baseball. Now, for at least Joe and I, all these are 6-game series for the most part all year. And so we'll start it right off. Again, people love their baseball here in the Midwest. A lot of people love their faith as well. So we're going to kick it off on Holy Week and finish that homestand up on Easter Sunday. So everybody better be on good behavior. Last year, the Tin Caps and Cubs got into a brawl that made it onto every sports show and every viral clip in the country. But the GMs and staffs are great friends and respect one another, so we're excited. The neat thing about this is you do get to meet the other staff members for the teams coming in. So right away, when I get a roster and when Joe's team's a couple days from coming out, not only do we look at the players, do they have high picks, anybody from my hometown in this part of the country or different stuff like that, but you try and make connections. A lot of times people in our positions will reach out to each other. Hey, you're going to love our manager. He's great. As long as the food is warm and there's a couple cold ones in there after, everything will go good for the week and stuff like that. So it really is a community of guys and gals that it's a labor of love, and we absolutely love what we do. Sounds like I've got the latest opening day of the three of us on here. That just means it could be 70 degrees or 17 degrees here in the great state of Indiana.
And, from a fan's perspective, speaking of Easter, it's always fun to, you get this Easter egg, the golden egg that just happens to be going through, and you get to see them while they're young, whether it's I could drop all kinds of names that have played for you guys, all three of your organizations, and you get to see them while they're young, and you're like, oh man, I saw that guy when he was still a Tin Cap or a Cub or an Indian. Joe, let's bring it over to you. You guys open up, and this is another reason why I like minor league baseball. And I was telling these guys offline before, you think I'm a hat collector. The minor league baseball hat collection scene is just insane. You guys are opening up with the Quad City River Bandits, and, it's just the minor league names that I absolutely love. So Joe, tell us about, some of the things and you personally are excited about, as well as the organization for this upcoming season. We talked about, the programs you run. Let's just talk about baseball. So what's some of the things you're excited about for this year?
Well, I think the biggest thing for us is seeing a new crop of young players, new prospects. I mean, obviously, I think we would all admit that the quality of play on the field last year wasn't the same as what it had been in previous years, and that was because guys had the full year off. You had a lot more injuries than what you'd had. So I think the biggest thing this year is healthy guys that are having a full spring training. They had a chance to play last year, and now they can just get after it, have fun, and for me personally, I think the number one thing is when you see that family that comes out on opening and the kids are high-fiving you. As you mentioned earlier, we're in the memory-making business. And, I'm lucky enough I have a nice splash pad here that I hope I get to use on opening day so kids can come home after a fun night in the splash pad. But on April 8th, I'm not sure that'll be the case. Hopefully it's just not an ice skating rink. But I think that's the biggest thing is just seeing the people come out. As Mike mentioned earlier, we are a respite from the daily grind. This is where people can go and just spend time with their family, enjoy themselves. We're all affordable venues. And I think that's the number one thing. And that's what I like is, again, you just see people coming back out. You get new friendships that are made at the ballpark each year. We get to know our season ticket holders. And for us, that's why we do what we do. And it is a long grind. You know, we do have the 6-game homestands. But at the end of the day, you know, I think we all love it in some form or fashion, and we've all been doing it close to 30 years now. So that's for me personally. I think the biggest thing, though, is just getting guys back out on the field without the distractions of COVID policies and procedures and all that. That'll be the main thing. And, you know, these guys can focus on what they do. We'll do what we do from the fan, host, and customer service standpoint, and the entertainment side. We'll let the guys take care of it on the field.
Well, another, you know, going back to the fields, the views from the bleachers looking out from all 3 fields is just amazing. And Randy, as we bring it over to you, the one thing I like is, you know, when you're sitting, looking at the Indianapolis skyline, you look up at the tallest building and you're seeing where I work, and I can just walk there right after work, catch a game, and be home in no time. And so I'm going to be there quite a bit. And I tell you what, that's what I personally am excited about. You know, if I could make it to Fort Wayne and South Bend as easy as I can make it to Indianapolis, you know, I'm going to put some miles on the car this year for sure. But a lot of it's going to be tread on my shoes walking to the Vic. So tell me about what you're excited about for Victory Field and the Indianapolis Indians this year.
Well, first I'll say, you talk about guys you've seen. I've been to both ballparks. I was in Fort Wayne visiting. I guess it might have been 4 or 5 years ago, and it was Fernando Tatis and Vlad Jr. playing on the same diamond. And look where those guys are, right? And that's at the time that was low A. Now, you know, Joe and Mike are in high A, or I guess you guys are called single A, high A, and then single A, I think is what we're called now. We're still trying to figure all this stuff out with our league names and everything else. But yeah, you never know who you're going to see. I think baseball fans in the state of Indiana are blessed with the facilities that we have in all 3 markets. And yeah, I think, believe it or not, when so we all signed 10-year deals with our major league affiliates. When we get done with our deal in 2030, we'll be with the Pittsburgh Pirates for 25 years. That just, I thought of that the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, we thought that might be a stopgap in 2005, and it's been a good relationship. And they've got a new regime with Ben Cherington running the big league level, and they have talent. That's I've not, in my 28, 29 years, I've not seen a front office as excited, though they're understated about it, with the talent that they have coming from single A and double A over the next couple of years. So you ask what we're excited about. It's been a couple lean years from a talent perspective in Indy, but the next couple, the Pirates are excited, and we're excited about that too. And hopefully we get through the lockout and get some of those guys back in tow on the 40-man roster. They're going to be in the minors, and fill out these rosters and get going, because we're excited about that. And then I think the biggest thing also is we've all talked about it. What I gauge it on is smiles. When you walk through the ballpark, undoubtedly, I bet 98% of the people in the ballpark are smiling. The other 2% are going to the guy that's the head of the complaints, which is Mike Nutter. But other than that, it's about smiles. And that's why we do what we do, and to be that respite for people, and getting back to that more carefree world, and those smiles is, I think, something that we're all looking forward to.
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to stress that, what you just said, because even me, I'm a major baseball nerd. I think that's safe to say. But even that, I will go to a game and just sitting at any one of these fields and just turning off everything else and seeing those great views and that great environment. So you don't have to be a Hardy the Hat guy to enjoy these 3 stadiums right here. It's just, you can't get any better. And on that note, I tell everybody I am a 12-year-old kid, and I'll probably never reach 13. I love the game, but it's so much more than a game to me. when I'm sitting here interviewing you guys, I'm a 12-year-old kid because, I mean, I'm a fan of what you guys are doing. So I want to ask you that same question. When are you a Hardy the Hat guy? When are you, like we talked about, all the work that goes in to doing what you guys do to oversee the operations of a professional baseball organization is, you are going to work. But when are those times, and Randy, I'll just bring it right back to you. When are those times where you come to work and you just get to take a second and step back and look around and you kind of realize, wow, I get to work at a baseball field. I get to work with all these baseball people. I'm doing what I love. I'm a 12-year-old kid right now. When are some of those times that happen for you?
It's actually when I leave. There are an occasional opportunity when you're the last one in the ballpark and as either the sun setting or night has fallen on the city and the views that we all have. When you're in there alone and it's quiet and there's still a hustle and bustle that you can hear out beyond the gates or the walls or whatever it might be. And then you just have that moment where it's a nice night, you're alone in the ballpark and you just got your accent lighting on in the ballpark and you just take a deep breath and realize this is why we do what we do. That's a special moment for me, especially being an ops guy. There were a lot of times when I had that situation, locking up the ballpark or whatever else it might be. And I got those keys in my hand and I wouldn't have thought 30 years ago that I'd be in a spot like that. Where I've got control of a great facility and can provide the opportunities that we do for fans and staff and kids and everything else. And it's that moment when you're there alone, when you can soak it all in and just take it all in and enjoy it.
And I've had that moment at Victory Field, somewhat near that. And as a matter of fact, I've had a 12-year-old kid moment at all three of the stadiums here. In Victory Field, as you see these hats behind me, that picture was taken at Victory Field for the state finals last year. And it takes a long time to set that thing up. So I'm there before, anybody but the people opening the doors. And I was there till the end. And you're right. When they shut the lights off, you're overlooking the city. I just had to stop for a second and was breathless. At South Bend, it was that time I talked about at the beginning when I got locked out up there on the deck. And I'm thinking, you know what? Just leave it locked. I'm good. So let's talk about when you're going to work up there at Four Winds Field. When is the times where you can step back from the work and say, wow, I'm loving what I'm doing?
There's actually two times a year really in particular. And one is opening day. That morning, you like to get to the ballpark about 6 or 6:30. I like to be the first one there. And you walk out, you're just looking over a pristine field and kind of all that stress that was leading up to that point, it just kind of melts away because regardless, in a couple hours, you're going to get started and it is what it is. And people are going to have a great time out at the ballpark. So for me, it is really, truly that opening morning. And then the other second time for me is probably the last game of the season, a long grind, you're tired, you've kind of had that single digit countdown until the end of the year. And for me, I usually, my wife and kids are there. My kids are 12 and 13, and it's taking them out on the field, sitting at home plate, and watching the final fireworks show of the year. You can kind of take that deep breath, and people are, as soon as the fireworks end, they're cheering, and it's kind of like, we did it. We did it again. It was a great year. And those are the two things, because I think, as we'll all attest, is I think we're always moving so fast. We never do sit back and look at what we accomplished. I've been here 10 years now, and I know Randy's been there for, 27, 28. Mike, you're probably close to 19 now. It's hard to believe, even for me. It's been 10 years already. I mean, time flies, and sometimes we just have to slow down and realize what we're doing. And, we're blessed. There's no doubt about that.
Well, I'm living vicariously through you guys' stories here, but I know it's not all, it's not all 12-year-old kid moments. There's work involved. And, speaking of the 12-year-old kid moment in Fort Wayne, it was, I was telling you that, John Nolan allowed me to come up and let me do a test around of the hat rack up there. And then the 12, if that wasn't fun enough, we were shooting some video and he let me go on field and they did some soft tosses. I'm sure John was just nervous as heck that, this Hardy the Hat guy is going to mess up the field and get the grounds crew mad at him. But they did some soft tosses. I was so excited to be out there. I think I missed 2 straight soft tosses to me, but it was, I was definitely a 12-year-old kid at that moment. Tell me about Parkview Field up there and just those moments where you get to step aside from the work view and you get that kid view that's saying, wow, you know what? I'm good. I'm blessed up here.
Yeah, you know what? My 2 buddies, Randy and Joe, the examples they gave resonate big time with me, either being the first one in or the last one to leave. Those are big things. I would tell you, not arrogantly, because it applies to all 3 of our stadiums and many more around the country, but a lot of times it's cool to see the visiting team come in for the first time. All 3 teams represented on this call have beautiful skylines and unbelievable ballparks and incredible fan support. Randy's led the country in attendance before for all 160 teams. What Joe and his crew have done in South Bend of reversing the trend and revitalizing downtown South Bend and their ballpark is amazing. So it's cool to meet the guys on the other team. We don't name other stadiums, but people will come in from a stadium that maybe isn't as nice as some of the other ones and just I've literally heard guys on the phone calling their dad, or to see them with their camera phone out doing a panoramic thing, sending it to their dad. And it's like, hey dad, almost like the Field of Dreams, is this heaven? And it's like, no, it's Indiana and the big leagues. You're going to make a lot more money, but you're never going to have more fun than you're going to have in these ballparks. And then the last thing, I started doing it last year after the pandemic. I'd never done it before. Both these guys have mentioned, and you've mentioned, Hardy, we go from the morning to late at night. But last year, more often than not, I snuck away for 20 minutes during the day to go out and sit in a seat and watch BP for either team. I'd lose track of time, so I don't even know who's hitting when. But just still that kid's game that all of us grew up playing and watching and loving and stuff. And watching these guys, Randy mentioned Tatis and Guerrero and those guys years ago, just bombing stuff off the building in left field. It's still neat to be a fan with that Field of Dreams mentality that, man, we get to work at a baseball park every day. Not everything's perfect. The weather in Indiana is less than ideal. Sometimes fans can be tough. The labor shortage is real. But if you don't find those positive, those 12-year-old moments, as you've called it, then what are we doing this for?
I'll tell you what, and that hard work, that labor you're doing, I know it's a labor of love, but all kidding aside, it is work. And, there's a lot of moving parts that you guys are juggling at any given time. And the end result is that people like me just get to and come in and enjoy and relax and put my life to the side because of you guys taking care of everything else. Baseball is an industry. Obviously it's an entertainment. It's a pastime. Is it America's sport anymore? I don't know. I'm not going to argue that. It's definitely still America's pastime. I would say that because these guys are in a hurry. These guys are getting stuff done so that we can go there and slow down. And guys, I've taken a lot of your time and I really appreciate it. We're going to keep in contact throughout the year because I'm going to sell what you're doing. And I mean that on every level, the product that's getting put on the field and then as well as the product that's getting put out into the community. I love every part of it. And Heart of the Hat guy is not just a baseball fan. I'm a fan of what you're doing. So thank you as we continue moving along with our coverage of the 2022 professional baseball scene across Indiana. Fellas, what do you think? I think we're all on mute still, by the way. Steve and Jeff, you guys were in that interview, and you guys had some questions too. We're going to have that full interview on the web. For time's sake, we didn't have that full interview on this show. So check out baseballcrossindiana.com for that full interview. But any parting thoughts before we move on that and the minor league baseball scene? Anything you want to accentuate before we move on and talk about Major League Baseball?
Well, Dan, I just want to say that you could tell in their voices that, number one, they weren't enemies. They were best of friends. They're all trying to accomplish the same thing. But, the years that they put in, I think it falls under the category. They don't have jobs. They have a passion, and you could just tell in their voice that they just love what they're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I tell you what, with those 6-game home stretches coming up, they're going to know they got a job there. I tell you what, those guys put in some long hours on those home stretches, especially when you got the evening games. They're not getting out of there till 3 a.m. But let's move on to Major League Baseball. And we're going to do this. We're going to kind of run through this real quick. What you have here, this is basically returning native Hoosiers or people born in Indiana anyway, from the 40-man rosters of last year. As far as what's new, obviously me and Jeff's Tucker Barnhart, is in Detroit this year and not in Cincinnati. I tell you, I thought I could go through life without being an American League Central fan. But now with Lance Lynn and the White Sox, Tucker Barnhart is with the Detroit Tigers. I'm following the American League. So, of course, both Brownsburg guys there. Looking through this list, guys, Mike Brasso, I think, he spent some time up and down last year. Whether he's going to be a full year 40-man roster guy, I don't know. But looking through the rest of the list, Hunter Owens, for example, Evansville Modern Day ISU guy, he just started. He just got his debut, I believe it was last year. Same way with Zach Pleesack. What's that?
With the Pirates.
Yes. Yep. As well as I probably should, maybe annotate these slides a little bit more. As well, and the way you're looking at the screen, top to bottom on the list is top to bottom, left to right on the pictures you see there. Zach Pleesack, born in Crown Point, Ball State grad. I believe last year was his first full season. I think he had some appearances maybe in 2020, but not enough to do rookie status. And tell me if I'm wrong there. But same way with Josh Rogers, he had a great introduction last year into the bigs, and we got a chance to talk to him actually back at the IHSBCA clinic. Talked to Lance Lynn also. I'm kind of hopping around here, but Lance and a few of the guys you see on this list, Lance Lynn, Kevin Kiermaier, both are going to be included in the interviews we did with them next week in our high school preview show. We also took some footage from Sean Manaya, retired Jared Parker. A few guys that we've talked to on this list are going to make some cameos next week in our high school season preview show. Couple more things as we we're looking at the Major League Baseball scene. I'm going to put another slide up here for you. This is players who were drafted, recently, so to speak, that are still on, whether they're free agents. I know I'm missing one on here because I didn't go way back. I just went back to 2014. TJ Collette, matter of fact, there's a name you want to keep your eye on, but I mean, he was still playing for Kentucky last year, so I didn't bold-faced him. But, Zach McKinstry, Ash Russell, Logan Sowers, Nick Snell, Tanner Andrews. I know Nick Whitgren is another free agent. But that's kind of a different list. These are people right here that at least I could be wrong, but I don't believe they've had an official debut yet. Am I wrong on any of these guys?
Yeah, Zach McKinstry has played.
Yes.
Played very well for the Dodgers.
Yeah, how did I overlook that one? Matter of fact, I even spoke with his dad a while back. I need to. Where's my? I'm going to fix that right now so that the recording of the show, there we go. So that on the recording of this show, we don't have him on there. Zach McKinstry had a lot of appearances last year for the Dodgers. So we're gonna fix that real quick. Other than that, are we missing any? I know I don't have a list of people that are still free agents, but I know Nick Whitgren.
Right. As far as free agents or indie ball, that might be in the works. I know Ash Russell made a comeback, but he was released, and Logan Sowers was released. But what their current status is, I don't know. But those guys were released.
Another slide to look at, and this one, this right here is, it's definitely way too early to talk about people on this list. This is the 2021 draft with people with Indiana ties. Definitely these guys are, low A, rookie ball, and some may make and work it up. I would say the only potential of seeing any of these guys in the bigs this year is, if they get a due to injuries or anything like that, they get pulled up to be on, like pitchers specifically I'm referring to, might get pulled up to add some depth for a few games where they're needed. But other than that, and another interesting highlight on this is, there are no Chicago from the 2021 draft. There are no draftees by the Chicago Cubs, who are, related to the South Bend Cubs, of course, or the San Diego Padres, which is the franchise that the Fort Wayne Tin Caps are tied to, or the Pittsburgh Pirates, which is where the Indians are tied to. So none of these players you see here will be donning any of the minor league uniforms from Indiana, but they're going to, pass through town. Definite possibilities of passing through town, especially for the Fort Wayne Tin Caps and the South Bend Cubs in the A level. You're going to see some of these guys passing through town there. So, keep an eye on that. Take a screenshot of this slide right here. You can also see this full list on our player index at baseballacrossindiana.com. It's actually where I pulled this. So that is, guys, as we talk about them, we could have a full show just talking about the last two lists that we had there, as well as, if you go back to this list right here, there are some studs on this list. I think Lance Lynn has a legit chance of a Cy Young this year. Tucker Barnhart is always in the running for another Gold Glove. Same way with Kevin Kiermaier. And looking through that list, Zach Pleesack, he may have a come out year, a breakout year. Sean Manaea, he had, the no hitter a few years ago, but, he's kind of been quiet, but he's also had some surgeries. But you also look at Josh Lindbloom, and Kyle Gibson. Kyle Gibson was an all-star last year. He's a guy that you always have to have on your radar. Josh Lindbloom, the Harrison / Purdue guy, after coming back from, Korea a few years ago, where he's playing baseball in Korea. I mean, he's just been.
He won their equivalent of Cy Young 2 years in a row.
Yeah, and he's just been on a steady incline ever since. So, these are, and Josh Rogers, I got a chance to talk to him. We got a chance to talk to him at the IHSBCA clinic this year. He is making movement as well. And our man, Josh Van Meter, I love that dude. He is, we got to keep an eye on him. I wish he'd come back to Cincinnati, but he is making some waves in Arizona. And one neat thing about him, this goes back to the interview we had with Coach Reel at IU Southeast. And this is one thing I'll kind of leave our Major League preview on, is Coach Reel, if you remember that interview from our college season preview show, he said, listen, if you want to make a roster, if you're not dedicated to one position, if you're looking for alternate routes to get in to a lineup, hitting is one method, but there's only one DH spot. Whereas there are other, and if you're not a pitcher or, quote unquote specialty position like pitcher or catcher, there are tons, there's all the outfield positions and infield positions where if you have that kind of versatility, your likelihood of getting in the game is higher. In steps someone, Josh Van Meter. That is a perfect example of that. The guy can play everywhere. Now, he doesn't catch, he doesn't pitch. He probably could, at some level anyway. Down the road, if he's a veteran, we may see him come in to throw an ephus at the end of a game where they're winning by 20. But, he's a perfect example of, if you're versatile, then you'll find a way to get in the game. And, he's got a great bat and he's a great defensive player. So we will see a lot of Josh Van Meter this year for sure. Guys, any parting thoughts before we pass things over to our man, Chris Beach and Papa Beach, for his debut final out?
Let's hear it.
Anyone?
Chris is
Okay.
late. Someone say something so I can delay. Just kidding. Chris, we're going to pass things over to you. Today's March 13th, 2022. If you're just tuning in, this is the final out of today's full episode of Baseball Across Indiana, where we recapped a full college baseball scene and previewed the minor league and major league seasons coming up for teams and players from Indiana. At this point, Chris, send us home with today's final out.
With the high school baseball season kicking off tomorrow with practice, the recruiting season will be soon to follow. And as a parent, you need to make sure that you're not the reason your son doesn't get recruited. And if you don't think that's possible, I sat and listened to a mid-major college coach a couple years ago talk about sitting in the crowd without any emblems or insignias to show that he was representative of a Division I school and he was there to recruit a kid. And he happened to be sitting behind the parents of a kid he was there to recruit. And after sitting through 3 innings of these parents yelling at the umpire, yelling at their kid's coach, yelling at other players on their kids' teams, this coach decided that kid wasn't worth recruiting anymore. Yes, you heard me right. That coach decided his parents weren't worth the hassle that of bringing that kid onto campus was going to bring. So there are some things parents should do, but there are a lot of things parents shouldn't do. First of all, let's keep in mind, Division I colleges only have 11.7 scholarships to divide between 30 to 32 players, depending on roster sizes and how they do it. Division II only has 9. Division III has 0. NAIA is different. JUCO is different. So first of all, you have to understand that your son's scholarship opportunities are limited to begin with. Secondly, don't try to evaluate your own son's talent. Unless you've played at those levels he's trying to attain, you probably don't know what you're talking about. And I'm just being honest. Next up, I would say, I've met a lot of parents who have paid more money for travel teams, hitting lessons, all these things, than they're going to earn in a scholarship to a college. Don't do that. Next, don't be a helicopter parent. And I'm going to give you the definition of helicopter parent. A parent who takes an overprotective or excessive interest in the life of their child or children. That's right. The term helicopter parent is now a noun. If you are a parent and you have to justify why you're so involved in your son's career, you're probably a helicopter parent. Don't be one of those. Now, be honest with yourself. Take fair stock of yourself and consider the options of the opinions of seasoned coaches. Go find out what coaches at that level think of your son if you can. And if you can't, find people who have evaluated that talent before and see what their opinion of your son or daughter is. Oftentimes, as parents, we have a much higher opinion of our son's talent than what they really have, or what the son even really thinks he has himself. So find someone who knows what they're talking about before you start talking about your son to someone else. And then prioritize decisions. What you should do is base your decision on academics, campus life. What is your son going to study? Does that school that you're interested in going even offer that? And athletics should be last. The prestige of the program should be last. It should be what is the best fit for your son at the college level. And lastly, don't eliminate the lower levels. Some of the best in baseball in Indiana is at the NAI level, at the D3 level. Because it's not Division I doesn't mean it's not good baseball. So don't forget that. And if you want to go one step further, don't eliminate junior college, which used to have a bad name in years past, where kids who were academically ineligible or on the low end of the academic scale went to junior college because that was their only option. That is not the case anymore. Some of the best baseball in the country is played at the junior college level. And in our area, it's played in Fort Wayne, down in Vincennes, up at Ancilla, and better yet, or not better yet, but also over in Illinois, which has some of the best junior colleges as far as baseball goes in the country. So with the baseball season right around the corner, don't be the reason your son doesn't get recruited. And that's this week's final out.